Welcome to the Creative Brew, helping you keep your creative juices brewing. We're giving out chunks of insight, motivation, and practicality for your creative journey. If you're a creator, athlete, or entrepreneur, luck can only get you so far. Having the right skill sets are critical in your success. All Skill No Luck makes handcrafted, custom-designed flannel wear, made in the United States and based here right in Oceanside, California. They pride themselves on quality, creativity, and attitude. The perfect brand for the Creative Brew. Use promo code CreativeBrew10 and get 10% off and free shipping within the United States. You can check them out at allskillnoluck.com. My next partner is Elevate Coffee Trading, and if you appreciate specialty coffee, enjoy outdoor adventure, and love helping elevate the lives of children around the world, then you're going to love Elevate Coffee Trading. Their mission is to extract hope through love, coffee, and adventures. There's free shipping in the United States, and every bag of coffee helps sponsor health and education for children in coffee-producing countries and in areas of need in the United States. You can use promo code Elevate21 on your next order, and you can follow their journey on social media at Elevate Coffee Trading. Or you can visit online at elevatecoffeetrading.com, and let's start extracting hope together. And this show is brought to you by Tennessee Grappling Apparel, based out of the Knoxville area. Lifestyle wear for the modern wrestler or grappler. Use the promo code CB10 on your next purchase at TennesseeGrapplingApparel.com. Welcome to a new episode of the Creative Brew, giving you insights on your creative journey. Today, we have a special guest today, Tony Washington. He is an acclaimed concept artist, illustrator, designer with more than 25 years of work in the creative career, in the creative arena. Just I know personally, like I said, I actually discovered this man. I went to the PowerCon out here and got an autographed poster from Tony Washington, and so like I said, I was a big fan. I'm already been a big fan of He-Man, but to see the artwork that he was putting out was amazing. So had the opportunity to go up there, get a signed poster, which I do still have from the man himself. And but yeah, he's going to talk about his journey, all the stuff that he's got going on. He's got, like I said, amazing artwork. So we can sort of dive into just creative entrepreneurship, the pros and cons, and then everything else he's got going on. So without further ado, I'll let Tony share his story.
I definitely appreciate it. Thank you again for having me on. It's definitely, again, it's an awesome opportunity to be here with you and all your listeners and viewers. Again, my name is Tony Washington. I've been in the industry for it's coming up on 30 pretty soon. So like I've been in this thing for a minute. I got hired at the age of 18. I was hired at San Diego Comic-Con by a company called Image Comics, their Wildstorm division, which was ran by legendary artist and huge fan forever of Jim Lee. I was with them and his group here in La Jolla, out here in San Diego. I was with them for about 3 years. I had always wanted to get into comics right around the age, around 15, 16 years old. I saw a book called Spawn, and that kind of changed everything for me. I've always was a fan of Todd McFarlane, but to see what he did with Spawn, that kind of changed the game for me, and seeing how the production of comics had just leveled up. It's like the whole coloring was incredible. It wasn't just like an ink wash anymore. It's all digital now, and it just looked unreal. Everything that I'd seen at the time, but never looked like that. So anything come out of Marvel and DC at the time was just getting the handle. So wanted to figure out what those guys were doing, and so I made it a mission to figure out, because I couldn't afford Photoshop or any of that crazy stuff that those guys were using. So I was trying to figure out what I could do on some DigiPaint. So I was getting down on my 16 colors at 15, 16 years old on my old PC and trying to figure it out. So I would go to Comic-Con every year since I was 15, take my portfolio, and I would show everything that I had to these studios. And at the time at Comic-Con, you just walk up in there and just show up and stand in line really quick and get in. But there was none of this crazy stuff where you gotta get a pass 18 years in advance and hope you get it. So So it's a lot more difficult to get to the show. But at the time, I was able to walk in and at 15, go to Marlon DC with a portfolio. Didn't get in, was okay. I just wanted to keep being persistent. And at 16, I did it again. 17, did it again. And at 18, I was on my way to Cal Arts. I gotten a grant and scholarship up there to go to Cal Arts in Valencia, California. That was where I was going to end up going because I was, thinking about either animation or comic books, and Cal Arts was huge on Disney. So a lot of the art animators out of Disney came from Cal Arts at the time. So I was like, well, I got to go to Cal Arts. I got to figure this out. Submitted my portfolio and lucked out and got a scholarship up to there. And was up there for summer arts, my summer session right out of high school. And I was there. I was like, you know what? I really want to try comics one more time while I'm up here. So I did a Spawn comic book. It wasn't a full book. It was like 4 pages and a cover. And I did it all in color pencil and ink pen, and it was all traditional media. So I was like, I don't have access to digital stuff. So I need to figure this out. So I went down, took a train ride down to San Diego Comic-Con. And at the time I was working, right before I went to college, I was working at a comic book store. So I told the guys, hey, can I come in with you guys? And, and I'll help work the booth. And then I'll walk off to do my portfolio review. And so I ended up, getting in early so I could get ahead of the lines. So I was one of the first 2 people, I think, to get my portfolio reviewed. And I just went to Image because I was like, I need to go to Image. Is where I want to go. So I'm gonna figure it out. I've gone every year, and I keep showing these guys that I'm hungry at this stuff. So hopefully they can recognize that. And thank goodness they did. They saw my work and they're like, hey, are you interested in working for us? At the time, it would have been Top Cow, which was Mark Silvestri's division. And then they realized I was in San Diego. So they asked, well, would I be interested in taking a job at Wildstorm since I'm in San Diego instead? I'm like, well, I want a job. So yes, I'll do it. They reached out, and Jim's team reached out to me. And then I don't know, but 3 months after that, I had a job. I was a colorist for Wildstorm. And at the time, I was minimum wage. I was like, not to date too much, but it was like $5.50 an hour. It was minimum wage at the time. So I was just like, oh yeah, I got $5.50 an hour. So that, fast forward, 3 decades, and that there's no way to survive in San Diego for $5 an hour. So yeah, I worked there. I learned Photoshop. I was coloring with a mouse at the time, so I didn't have any experience with tablets. So I was like, oh, well, I got to figure out something. So I worked pretty much 16, 17 hours a day. I was there for my 8-hour shift. And then I would stay longer to practice Photoshop because I wanted to get proficient and better at it. So I would stay, do my shift and do another shift just to keep practicing. And then I would go home, take a nap, then hell, I'm back to work, because I was working on graveyards. So I was like, all right, well, I gotta, I'm 18 years old and these dudes are seasoned. So I got to make sure I'm on par with what these guys are doing. I'm surrounded by, living legends at the studio. So I'm this young kid out of high school trying to make a name for himself. So it's like, I gotta represent and show these guys that I'm serious. So I did that for about 4 months, working about 16, 17 hours a day, getting better and better at it. And they moved me over to some of the premiere books within about 4 months. So I was on a lot of the bigger books at Wildstorm. So I jumped into, I believe the first one they had me on was DEF CON 4 with Matt Broom. I hope I had the title right. With artist Matt Broom. And then I moved over to a lot of the stuff that J. Scott Campbell, Will Spartacio, and Jim were doing. I was coloring on their stuff. And then I started working with, dedicated a lot of time to working with awesome writer and mentor of mine, Sean Ruffner, and Ryan Benjamin, on like Phantom Guard and other various books with some good friends, Joel Benjamin and Alex Carbonero, and all of us worked on that. And then just started. I got, after about 3 years of that, almost, I left Wildstorm to go completely freelance. I was ready to get even more knowledge and get better at what I do as an artist. And so I wanted to get into video games and movies. So I was just like, at the time at 16, my headspace is all, I got to do comics. That's the pinnacle of what art is. And that's all I want to do. And then I got in, I'm like, oh man, there might be more to do. So let me figure this out. So I was like, I need to continue to branch and learn and get better at this stuff. So I ended up going completely freelance at around 21, 22, and went freelance working for a little bit of everybody. So, and that's pretty much where I've been at this point. So I've been beyond lucky and honored to work with, Blizzard on World of Warcraft, Sony on a multiple things for them, especially a lot of their, I was working for their visual arts and services group where we do art for all the studios at the time. So I was working with Studio Japan when they were still around, and Studio Santa Monica, of course, Studio San Diego. So I would design the stuff people would see at E3. So all those big old, big posters you see on the screen during their conferences, that's the stuff I was designing. So I got to work on some ridiculous titles, and I'm not trying to name drop too much, but I mean, yeah, it was crazy to be, watching, some kid and working in literally in a Navy housing closet, because that's where my dad was military. So I needed a little office so I could kind of, pretend I was professional and I wanted to work. And it's like, yeah, they all have offices, so I need an office. And my pops was, well, they're the closet. So it wasn't that bad. But no, we converted our little closet into like a game room and office. So I was able to play my PC games with my brother and sister, and I was playing Doom on I don't even know I think it was like Acer 486 DX or something like that. It was super. Yeah, I mean, my phone is better than that machine, but I got to pretend I was professional at a young age. But I always had big dreams of being professional and doing this stuff for a living, and I was very lucky that the work paid off, and I've been able to work on so many incredible things. I mean, my first feature film was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles back in 2006. I was lead colorist for that film, and I was one of the concept artists and biz dev artists on that movie. And I worked on that thing for 2 years. So it was crazy to drive to LA 3 times a week for 2 years and work on a feature film. I mean, it was a lot. It was exhausting as heck, but I never gained so much knowledge in my life to be around some elite team of people, and then working with the crew in Hong Kong. There's like 300 artists overseas with our 20 here in the States, all jamming out together for 2 years. It was a lot, but but I'll never forget that experience, and to be able to be a part of that, and to move into other feature films behind that, and more comic books. I don't do as many books as I used to. I mean, I was used to doing 2 books a month on average, which is tons of work. It was like 44 pages a month in 30 days. So, I was used to not sleeping, and my wife can attest to that one. Thank you for your patience, wife. I love you. So it was. I've slowed down the crazy amount of hours. So now I'm actually getting rest each night, but I'm still working. If I can, 15, 16 hours a day if I can at a time, if I'm able to. But it's an everyday thing. I love doing it, so I don't consider it work. So. I've worked 7 days a week, and this is what I do for a living. So, not very many people could say that. I never take that for granted, because I know how hard it was to get in the industry in the first place. So, so I definitely reflect on all that. And, again, coming up on 30 years, I'll be, 48 years old and next year. So, coming up on 50 almost. And I'm like, holy cow, this life is moving. But, I've loved every part of it, and I've been able to share what I do with so many people around the world, thank goodness, and doing streams for various companies like Wacom and Adobe and Clip Studio. I mean, I've been able to, very fortunate that they've asked me to do stuff, to be able to share technique and help people of all ages, to add tools to their workflow that maybe they didn't think about, or maybe they just wanted to see how I do it in general. So it's a massive opportunity and honor to be part of all of that. Getting to my first time, I actually went to Birmingham, Alabama for the first time in my life this last year to teach inner city kids digital art and how to create comic book characters, and that was such an awesome time to see all their eyes light up and get down and do their own characters and stories, and it was super cool to watch them do their own thing, and because unfortunately the access to this kind of stuff is just not everywhere, and I want it's important to me to go out there to show them that it is possible to do this stuff, and they're at the perfect age, being in teenagers, to be able to do this stuff for a living too. So there's people far younger than me that are making a career at this already, of course, and people of course older than me as well doing it, but for those who don't think it's even possible, it's important for me to show that it is, and you don't need the best tools in the world to be able to do what I do. Yes, I have a couple of very rocket station propelled type machines. There's some horsepower on the stuff that I use, but at the end of the day, I've shown what you can do, which is paper and a pencil. I try, so if you don't have access to digital art, there is still traditional is always there to be able to do this stuff. So my foundation was digital art, and that's how foundation was traditional art, again, because I had no access to digital as a teen, so, or not the real good stuff like Photoshop, and that was the main thing, because I started on Photoshop 3. That was the first one I used. So of course I'm on the Creative Cloud, and thank you to Adobe for all their support for having this stuff, and so I definitely, it's a huge honor to be a part of their experts program. That just I just was able to announce that last week about that, but so yeah, I'll definitely be doing a lot more with them on like streaming and getting a lot of workflow tutorial type stuff out. Starting hopefully about a week, the first video will be out, but there's tons of stuff on my YouTube, so if anyone's interested in seeing that, I'll definitely share information towards the end on that. But yeah, I mean, in addition to like art, I do music too, so I'm always, I'm moonlighting in both areas. I mean, I was both trying to figure out which one am I going to do for a living. So I was like, well, one's got to pay the bills. I went with art. I had a scholarship to a music school in Boston, and then Cal Arts in Valencia. So I had to figure out which one I wanted to go with. I was super lucky to even have an opportunity for one, but to get both pop up, I was like, holy cow. So I, talking with my mom and dad, they were like, what is it that brings you happiness, the most? And I'm like, well, it's got to be art, because I've been doing it longer. So I'll go with that, and so I ended up turning down Berklee College of Music, and then I went to Cal Arts, and that was what started everything. So so it's been a crazy almost 30 years doing this stuff, but I it still feels like I started yesterday. But blink and I'm almost 50, so it's just like I can't believe how far it's gone, and to be fortunate enough to to meet an individual like yourself who we connected over stuff that we love in comics and games and cartoons, and Meta PowerCon, like we both know, and because I worked on that stuff for a minute, doing a lot of the comic books for MV Creations, and shout out to Val and Leanne and Matt and John Boy, of course. But they brought me on to do those Masters of the Universe books, and I colored a lot of those, and then moved over to Dragon's Lair and a few other books for them, and so that was like along that area, doing those and the Warcraft books. That was like the height of what I was doing in comics, was just going to town on like every book I could get my hands on, because it was so much fun to work with small teams. And then I did some creator owned stuff with good friends Dave Wilkins and Kevin Moreau on a book called El Zombo, and that was a lot of fun, and that's literally what led me into Turtles, was Kevin writing on El Zombo with Dave, and he asked me for to work on Turtles, and that I was floored. I didn't know what to. I was my wife will remember it. I can't backflip, but I did the best impersonation of one in our apartment. So it was I couldn't believe it, and to work on that it was just, and all this stuff was like crazy dreams coming true, to be able to be a part of all these crazy huge projects. And And so, yeah, it's been unreal to be doing this for so long, and still being able to do it, for a career. Yeah, every year is challenging. Of course, with the pandemic, it was even crazier for everybody,
Mhm.
including myself. So have had to figure out a new way to continue to make it sustainable. So yeah, definitely was doing new things, and created a whole print website to start offsetting any work that I could potentially lose. So thankfully that's been great. And then of course with the introduction of artificial intelligence and art, it's a very interesting time for all creatives, because it's not just art being affected. So um there's a lot of friends of mine who are not a fan of it, and understandable. I get it. I mean, it's weird to see people sampling your art and then using it to create their own pieces. So that's a little unsettling. But for me, I think it's important to embrace what's going to happen with technology, because it's not going anywhere. So I personally don't mind it. Some of my clients that I work with, they use AI when sending me their ideas for what they want to do for their next work. So they'll ask, we'll go back and forth in a dialogue, and they'll type up a prompt with something that they like, and they send it to me, and then I'll just design based off of their AI prompt. So it's weird, but it's definitely a whole new way of communicating, and all honesty, it's a lot faster for me, because I can see exactly what they have in mind.
Yeah.
When a lot of these producers can't even, they don't have the art side and the creative side, so they come to me for that. But at least they're able to convey some general visual representation from off their heads, so it helps for me. So it's a little weird right now, and the whole space of creativity, and it comes with everything, writing, making scripts. I've watched people do scripts in 4 minutes, just typing in prompts in chat GPT. I'm like, oh boy. So I'm like, yeah, this is going to get interesting really quickly. So um but I think it's important to embrace what's going to happen, because this AI stuff is not going to disappear. It's not happening. So so I have to, it's going to have to be part of what I do with my workflow, working with studios going forward. And it's already happening already in the industry, where there's studios that literally have prompt writers on staff now. And
Wow.
I'm like, okay, this is here we go. So I have, so I was like, I need to prepare for anything that could happen within that landscape, because it will change how many people are hired for these companies, which is, I get it. It's business. So I need to make sure that I'm handling what I do on my end as well. So I can still make myself available if they do use word prompts to help me get inspired. I'm on game for it. But in addition, I need to make sure I'm doing my own stuff. So I've been working on my own music, my own art, my own stuff, my own projects outside of what I do, for studios, and for any kind of freelance stuff that I do for individuals. But it's important to have that backup for yourself, to be able to, you want to have something that you can rest on just in case something happens. And that's one thing I've definitely learned over 30 years. There's so many ups and downs within art and creativity, and being knowledgeable of what happens within the field is super important, to be able to know how to pivot into new areas, because comic books were on that trajectory to go huge and huge and huge, and then it bottomed out, and I was just like, well, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna feel outside this bottom out. So that's why I started to make my move into video games, into feature films, because they all require art.
Yeah.
So I need to make sure that I can provide that art for all those different fields. So not just comics, and resting everything in just comics. I love them, and it's the coolest thing to be a part of a very small team, versus gaming and films, where it's hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are working on these giant projects. So it's great to be a part of all size teams, and to work side by side with some incredibly talented individuals, and to learn from them as well. Again, I always want to get better at this stuff. So I'm not a fan of complacency. So one thing I've always shared with everyone is, one, have fun, but two, never rest. Always want to learn more and get better at what you do in your craft. Because there's always someone just as hungry, if not potentially hungrier than you, to get into this field. So, there is pressure, but at the end of the day, if you're having fun doing it and able to make it sustainable, it's such a great position to be in, to be able to do what you love all day. So, that's definitely, I would say, a nutshell of my career so far. But uh, but
So,
definitely, I'm happy to share it.
so yeah, I mean, so it seems like obviously you've went the whole spectrum as far as even with your journey, and you still and still learning and getting into new creative avenues even now.
Yeah.
And like I said, and I know we could probably jump into some other things in the episode, but
Mhm.
with the I think one of the things you actually talked about was this just really having that persistence. And that's
Yeah.
something that, you know, I know for older sort of seasoned creatives, they had that sort of resiliency, persistence to sort of go out there, put out the work, reach out to, potential clients. Um, for whatever reason, like I said, uh, definitely can be other factors. I mean, obviously social media, just technology, it's just easier, sometimes easier access. Do you feel like that persistence is sort of dwindling with younger creators, or maybe aspiring creators now? Do you feel like that, like getting out there and being willing to connect, person to person? Do you feel like that's gone?
It's definitely different. I do think with social media, as you and I both know, we didn't have the internet back in the day. So we were put in the position, our connection was to go meet people. So I do think with social media, it has changed what we do to get work, and especially with like the younger audiences, they'll just put their stuff on Instagram or whatever social media platform they want to use, and then they'll send that link to a prospective employer. I do think that it's good to do that, but I think it's even more important to make a connection in person um, when you're able to. I mean, of course, if I'm applying a job for somewhere overseas, it's kind of hard to go out there and go hang out with people. but if you're able to go to a convention and meet with creatives, especially if you're interested in getting into the field of comics or entertainment or any of that kind of stuff, if you're able to go take your portfolio and meet face to face with these producers and editors, and or just artists in general, because there's artists who do hire for help at these shows. Um, I think I do see a shift in that, where it's primarily where I've watched people just do it through social media, which again, I don't think it's wrong, but I do think it's important to also make an effort to get to these conventions if you're able to, because it's so much more impactful when you're able to have a face to face and share a lot more, even more connection. You can say, hey, I emailed you at such and such, and here's my work. In addition, here's some more work. It shows that persistence. There is a difference between pestering somebody and being persistent. You don't want to pester somebody, over and over again and bashing them with portfolios every other day. You want to give it some time, but I do think it's important that you stay persistent. If it's an employer you want to work with, like a Riot Games or whoever it may be, it's important to be able to share what you do, maybe on a monthly or every other month, and then have updates in your portfolio that way. It's the same kind of foundation that I would do it with a convention, where I would take new art every single time I go. I think it's important to kind of do that if you're trying to get employed. So if you're only using social media, I think it's good to be persistent in that way. But if you're able to go meet face to face, that's seriously the most impactful, because you can really make a connection with a prospective employer or heck, just a friend at these shows. You can connect with a lot of awesome people. And you may not get a work connection out of it, but you may have a lifelong friend that come out of this kind of stuff too. So it doesn't have to always be business related, but I think it's important that the face-to-face connection is by far the most meaningful. At least for me, I love to be able to meet people and share what I do, and connect and on that kind of a level. But yeah, I do honestly agree with you that it does seem that a lot of the younger audience is more social media focused than going to conventions. But it's okay, it's not like a deal breaker if you never go to a convention, you just do social media. It's not, but I just think you get that extra level up when you meet these people face to face. So definitely.
Cool. That's great. That's great. Great answer. So we'll sort of circle around because, like I said, there's a lot of things. Obviously, I can't hit on everything for this podcast, but
Of course.
we'll circle around. Like I said, because I'm a huge He-Man fan, Masters of the
Yep.
Universe, and
Yep.
so how did you get in? Like, what was like I said, and when I initially saw a lot of your artwork, if you get a chance, I'll put his Instagram handle in this episode, and check out a lot of his work. He's done a lot of illustrations, posters for Masters of the Universe. Beautiful work. I'm huge on the colors. Colors are beautiful.
Thank you.
But how did you even get connected with that?
Yeah. Well, there is one piece right up there. If you can see it, it's a snake mountain up there.
Oh, that's nice.
There was a portfolio review that was online through MV Creations. I believe it was John Boy Myers who had posted it on their site that they were looking for artists and colorists and inkers to join their team. And that was one of those instances where I could not go over to the East Coast to go meet with these people. So I was like, well, I'm going to send my portfolio and see what happens. So they were like, John Boy reached out, I think within like a day or two. And it was just like, would you be interested in doing a test piece for us? And at the time, it was Dragon's Lair at the time. That was the first one I worked on with him. So I did like my variation of what Don Bluth's animation's coloring style would be, with the cell shaded rendering backgrounds and this cell characters of painted background kind of look, or animation look in general. So I did that, and like after that first week of doing that test, they had hired me to take the whole run of Dragon's Lair. And then I was doing covers for like that and Space Ace, and then they're like, they just acquired the license to Masters of the Universe. So I was like, yeah, so I want to work on that. So like, all right, well, what do you want to work on? I'm like, well, all of it. So they have me on like mainline Masters of the Universe. Then I've moved over to icons of Evil Merman, Rise of the Snake Man with John Boy himself. And then, various other things. And then PowerCon started not shortly, a few years after that is when PowerCon started. So they're like, would I be interested in coming out to PowerCon? It's in California. I'm like, well, of course, I'm an hour south of you guys, so I'm coming. So they're like, we'll bring some new pieces and, and let's get some promotion started. So I started doing a whole bunch of just He-Man posters, since I was no longer on the comics anymore at that point. And I was like, all right, well, started doing that. So I'd gone to every single PowerCon at that point, until they moved over to Midwest, where they're at, or the past last year, this year, they're out there Midwest. And I think they're probably going to stay out that way, which is cool. But hopefully one day I'll be able to make it back out towards Ohio and do that show again. But every single show when it was here in California, over in Torrance, I was at that thing, doing new art, new posters, new promotional material, like that piece up there. And there's two others. There's a Castle Grayskull and Crystal Castle for She-Ra I had done for them. They're actually like 10-foot by 12-foot photo backdrops. So their things were freaking huge. My machine definitely reminded me of that. But it took forever to paint those things. But I love Masters Universe. You and I both grew up with that kind of stuff, and to be a part of what I picked up them toys, and I would go to Toys R Us and just look at the box art. I was like, man, this stuff was so good. And
that's what hooked me was the box art.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, look at this. So it was, awesome fantasy art. And I'm like, this is nuts. So I got to figure out how to do this stuff. So I do my own drawings of He-Man fighting, every villain, and have my Stratos fighting people, and all that. So it was, yeah. So I was definitely doing comic books as a kid. So so it was, that's what started it, was that talent reach out that they had at NB Creations, and lucked out and got to be a part of all those books that those guys are doing, even some stuff that didn't come out. I wish I could talk about that, but unfortunately I won't be able to mention those books. But yeah, I mean, it was cool to color work on all those comics for He-Man and Snake Man and Merman and all these crazy things that I grew up loving in the 80s. I was sitting there working on them. So like it was nuts. I couldn't believe that I could be a part of all that stuff. And to share what I would do with so many people. They looked out for me in a great way, and it led to so many opportunities being on these awesome licensed projects, and it really helped my career and to advance what I would do, which led me into World of Warcraft. So working at Wildstorm in DC at the time, still freelancing. That's when they reached out, and that's the whole that just went nuts. And Ludo and I were floored at the response that book got. I mean, that literally changed our lives forever. the amount that book sold, I was like, what? So so he and I he's in France, and I've never met him. And we hadn't worked together for years, but to he and I were doing a fully painted book in a month, and it was nuts to the amount of hours that he and I did, but the response was incredible, and the fans definitely showed up for us, and he and I were grateful for forever for that support, because that literally changed the game for what we both did as artists, and and it literally helped me to continue to push what I do in other areas, because it just gave me so much freedom to go nuts on other projects. So so it was awesome to get that initial opportunity with those guys to it literally changed what I would do as a comic book artist and colorist, working with MV Creations. So huge shouts out to those guys. I know they're not really doing the books anymore, but I still see them when I can at conventions, and always in contact. And in fact, there's a piece I'm working on with a He-Man piece for this year's PowerCon. I can't wait to share. But I won't be there. It'll be for Matt Tyrese. And everyone support him at his booth. And I'll be posting it's a huge image with like 2 trillion characters on it. So I'm like, all right, it's like almost every single villain here on 2 separate posters. So I've been working on it for forever. It's almost on week 2 right now. So I'm like, all right, I promise I have it done by this show. But yeah, this one it's a beast. But I can't wait for people to see it. So definitely be keeping an eye out on both of our pages. I'll make sure to link him when I post it, so you guys can everyone can check out his work too.
Oh, sounds good. Sounds good. That's awesome. I can't wait to see that. Yeah, that's crazy. So right now, what as far as and I know you're constantly working on different projects. What fuels you, daily, when you're, working on, just concepts for art, or maybe you're working on video games or some other project, or even your music. What things sort of, what things inspire you?
Yeah, honestly, it's a little bit of everything. I try to look at it as much as I can. I love to be able to be versatile, and trying different things and working in different areas and mediums. So I think it's important for me to just reference a lot, and look at a lot of the stuff that's out there. Even regardless of if it's something that's high end on the technology side, like AR, VR, or AI. Kind of stuff, or even just going back to touching base on fundamental stuff that I would do in school. I try to touch base across that wide spectrum of creativity, because it's important to always to get better at this stuff. I like to look at artists from all fields, really. So whether it's young artists that are getting into the field now, seeing what they do with their art. Seasoned veterans who have been at this stuff longer than I have. I try to learn from them, and see what they're doing to push the envelope, and figure out ways that I can also have a voice in that space too, and to be able to share what I can do in that area. I think it's important to be literally I'll do comic books one day, and then some crazy surrealistic art, or very dark, or sci-fi, very heavily influenced painted art. And it's my style I try to evolve my work as much as I can. I don't want to have the same look every single time. That's I think it's good for a brand if you want to have a branding look, and that's your look, and people can know that's your look. But for me, yeah, I like to be versatile and have a little bit more to offer than just this is the Tony Washington style. That's all you're going to get, and I'm not changing nothing. So I like to I like to be able to, you know, if anyone's interested in checking out the work, it's, you know, you'll definitely see the link. But it's just at Tony Washington Art. But it's important to for me to try to branch out and try just new things and see what else I can kind of experiment with and learn, create new workflows, test what I do with my current workflow and see if I can make it more efficient. You know, so it's always about fine tuning and refinement, you know, for me, and finding out ways to add another layer of, you know, more to what I do, and, you know, building up what I do as a creative. I mean, it's never ending, you know, but I think the challenge of finding out what else I can do is what keeps me inspired, and it keeps me excited to keep pushing stuff. It could be something little as color palettes, you know, to change what I do in color, or how I would handle lighting on a piece, just change up what I do in that, or textures, or, you know, incorporate like, you know, or, you know, like scanned, or, you know, like textures from actual life, and incorporate that into my work as a brush, or, you know, an overlay in my work. That's a lot of stuff I do on my print site, is try to come up with mixed media stuff a lot. That way I'm not, you know, I don't want to get stagnant, because I'll start to get bored, and you know, and not very inspired by it. So, you know, yeah, I'm not a fan of just resting on it. I just want to, you know, like, you know, if it's not working, I'm gonna figure out another way to make it work, and find another area, and keep, you know, again, leveling up and all this stuff. So it's super important to continue to just, you know, be inspired by everything. You know, it's just so much content that we could take in now. You know, at the time I had, you know, growing up and learning and stuff, if I was lucky, if I went to a comic book store and got something, or went to a Tower Records when those were around, and go buy magazines on the different kinds of photography. And I still have all those books at my house, and, you know, and practice with what I can see. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to draw like that, and see how that person is doing that style, and figure it out for myself. You know, I mean, that was our old school AI, is us trying to copy stuff. So.
Yep. I actually, a short story, I actually, my first like foray into actually, like, I knew I wanted to be like a serious, you know, artist, was like way back in like, had to be like second grade. And I had like a He-Man. I was huge on He-Man, and I had some kind of a He-Man book. And my uncle, you know, he had passed away, but awesome artist. And I got one of the He-Man books, and I was like, okay, you know, I'm just gonna trace it. I'm just gonna, you know, trace the art, and then give it to him, and at like, hey, I did this.
Yeah, check it out.
And he automatically, he was like, okay, I can tell you trace this, line for line. And but he did tell me, he's like, look, I want you just to, you know, study the image, don't even draw anything, just study the image, and just work line by line until you get, you know, the whole piece. And that I pretty much just took that to heart, and I sit there and look, and just started working on just drawing one line, and just kept working from there. And soon enough, I mean, it wasn't like as clean as my tracing, but it was a start. And I knew, like, after that, I just kept going. And
Yeah.
and even now, like I said, I'm still doing a lot of you know, digital illustration. I'm more into the design and branding, but I'm still doing, you know, design and illustration. I actually got one of my shirts on right now.
Yeah, I was seeing that, man. That shirt's dope. I saw that when we first came up. Like, okay,
yeah.
okay.
But yeah, it's just one of those where you know, I'm still trying to, you know, evolve as a creative. And yeah, I'm always, like I said, I'm always wanting to explore different options as well. But it's always cool to sort of like, that was like my first foray into, you know, actual, you know, me wanting to be an artist, was having that He-Man book. And like, you know, and I knew that the character I drew too was Faker. I tried. That was my first character. And
Okay.
so yeah, I tried to trace a Faker. So that was yeah, that was my, you know, my journey into art. So it's pretty cool. So going sort of
That's good, man.
circle there.
Yeah.
But right now, I mean, what are some creative tips, you know, for our audience?
Yeah, as far as tips, I mean, I think it's important to get exposure to whatever you have the means for. It does not have to be the craziest, software in the world. You don't have to jump out the gate into some of the super high end stuff that's out. I mean, you can, if you have access to an iPad or heck, a phone, you can use, like stuff like Procreate, and just use if you only have a phone, you can use Procreate with their touch option where you can just paint with your finger on a phone. You can use Procreate on an iPad. That's a great introduction into getting into what I do in Photoshop and Clip Studio. Affinity Designer is some great software as well. My main two software packages are Adobe is primarily what I do for all painting, and some line art. Clip Studio for line art. Procreate, I take that with me everywhere. Anytime I'm not, at home, I'll just take the iPad and I'll sketch in Procreate. Or honestly, if you don't have means at all for anything digital, I think it's important just to grab some Bristol board. You can get that at any art store, or if you got Amazon, order some Strathmore Bristol board and some pencils. I personally use a 2H, 0.5 mechanical pencil for all my stuff, and some Pentel paint pens. That's what I use. Very easy to get access to get your start. As far as gosh, there's so many different things. They're for to learn how to do color theory and things like that. There's sites like Coolers. It's not colors. I think it's like a couple of O's and an LERS, something like that. You can definitely Google that. If I can figure it out, I'll make sure to get that to you so you can add that to your notes. But that's a great way of just learning how to do quick color theory. Lighting, I study everything. I try to look at movies like The Third Man. That was a classic for black and white movie. How they did lighting in that film. The art director on Turtles, Simon Merton, made the entire team watch that movie end to end, back to back, multiple times, so we can kind of get an idea of what we're going to do on the turtle film, because he was like, that was the direction. So we all had to learn it. And I'm like, all right. I mean, we watched this and I'm like, holy cow, this movie's good. So I definitely recommend checking out as many things that can inspire you, from movies to games to comics. I do think if you're interested in getting into stuff that was related to figures, if you have access to drawing and classes for figure art, I think that's extremely important to kind of get the fundamentals of the anatomy down. I definitely took those types of classes while I was in college, and in high school. I would try to take figure art classes, or before I could afford to do that, I grabbed magazines and just try to draw the form, and figure out ways to get a style around that. And then yeah, I mean, I think with so many great avenues now with YouTube and whatever social media platform you use, it's kind of endless for how much you can kind of have access to. It's just kind of finding out the artists that you'd like to follow in their journey and that give you the most inspiration. I think, look at them, and then maybe every once in a while bring in a couple others to help level up what you do as an artist, because it's good to have exposure to a variety of art. You never know what might spark inspiration for what you do as a creative. So I tend to try to look at a variety of art from all ages and all techniques, if I can, when I can. It just keeps that excitement going, because I always I love watching what so many artists do around the world, and I'm lucky to be a part of it, but it's I want to stay a part of it, so I want to get better and show that I've got growth as well in this field too. So I think all those are important, but at the end of the day, it's the most important thing is to have fun at it. There's no greater joy than to be able to roll out of bed and grab a bowl of Frosted Flakes and get to work.
That's a good day. That's a good day.
So I mean, that was, I knew I was doing the right thing when I was able to do that. And my commute was from my bed to my office. So now I have an office here in downtown, which is awesome. But I don't get to really roll out of bed anymore and do that. But when I'm working home late at night, I'll definitely will still have a bowl of cereal late at night. But so it's cool. I love what I do, and I know how hard it is to get into this field, so I don't ever want anyone to get discouraged if it does not happen right away. I mean, for me, it took honestly 4 years of nonstop work I wasn't getting paid to do my portfolio, so I knew I wanted to do this for a living. So I knew that it was going to take a lot of hard work, and, growing up, my mom and dad were both creatives. My dad had a scholarship to a college in Michigan, but he had to turn that down because I was on the way. So he ended up making the sacrifice and joining the Navy, and had a legendary career in the Navy. And I found his artwork. Gosh, I found his artwork when I was in my teens. I found a chest in our storage of just piles of his artwork. And I'm like, what is this? And my mom broke it down for me. I'm like, oh man. So I was like, I need to, this is it. And I told my dad that I was going to carry the torch and make art as a career, and finish what he left off at. And, as a thank you to him and my mom for their sacrifice for my brother, sister, and I. So it was crazy to see what he had done back at that time. And, fast forward just a couple of years ago, he retired in February, finally. But I was able to get him to get back to drawing again, just this year. So he got the literal same art setup that I have over here in the corner of my office. And he and I are drawing art together, and we released our own first print together.
Oh,
Just so it was, fast forward, it was an emotional day when he and I got to release our art, and, definitely some tears in there and some hugs, and, but to be able to share that opportunity with my pops was nuts. I've never had that kind of emotion, to see it go full circle like that, almost 30 years later, as a professional, and being able to work on a piece of my own dad, that was huge. So for he and I to be able to do that together, and him now he's drawing and going to town like he never missed a step, so I'm so proud and happy that my dad is doing art again, and creating. So, it's in all facets of, of my life. And, it makes it who I am. So it's important that anyone who loses touch or loses hope in trying to get into this stuff, I've always said, don't give up. It happens for all of us at a different time. There is no date that you're going to be a professional at this age, and that's when you're going to be able to consider yourself a professional. I don't ever like that kind of attitude with it. I just think working hard just pays off at the end of the day. It doesn't have to have a street date for you to validate you. I think it's important to just know that this is what you want to do, and this is your passion, and to never stop and rest on it until you're able to start making a living at it. And that's to me, that's when it starts to change, and you're able to make that transition into doing this as a career now. So it's important to recognize, the hard work, no question. And to reward yourself even on small victories. It doesn't matter, it doesn't. You don't have to sell 2 billion books to say you're a success. You could have, one print sold at a convention, and that's a success because you connected with someone who loves your work. So it doesn't. Every victory that you have as a professional, I think, is important to cherish, and to respect that that's part of your journey, and to always know that. There's going to be a roller coaster in this field. There's never been a year where I've made the same amount of money. I'll say that.
yes.
It's been different every year. There's been years I've made more, years I've made less. But the fact that I can still make money at this knows I'm doing the right thing. I can continue to still do it, and just get better at it. That's at the end of the day, like I said, it's just having fun, and recognize there's hurdles always in life, but I have art to fall back on. That's kind of my therapy, and my music to fall back on as well, which is why I'm trying to gear all this stuff up for Comic-Con this year, just dropping all kind of new stuff for everybody. So I can't wait for it.
That's great. That's great. So before we sign off, I mean,
Yeah.
what are some ending words of wisdom, for our audience, something that may, resonate with their hearts and minds and spirits?
Sure. I mean, for me, it has to fall back on what I said a little bit earlier, is to never be complacent with your art. Always journey. Always try to figure out ways to grow what you do as a creative. This field can lead you into so many different worlds that you would never even imagine if you just try. I do think it's important to never rest. Always learn to get better at what you do. And I echo what I said a minute ago. And the most important is to have fun at this stuff, because this is yeah, we can't take for granted what the opportunities that we get in life, because we don't know always when the next one's going to be. So it's important to cherish every opportunity and learn from every opportunity that you get, and add that to your roster of knowledge of what you can do to become better as an artist, better as a creative, and happier as in general as a person. And that's, I've lived on that for years. And thank everyone that supported you, because without support, I literally not be here with you right now if you didn't support me at PowerCon. So I mean, to make it super real, that's literally why I'm here today, is because you supported what I do as a creative at a convention, and you were able to share and connect on this platform together. So, I appreciate that, and thank you and everyone who supported me in my career. I mean, without that, I know I wouldn't be able to do this as a profession. So, it means everything to me.
That's great, man. That's awesome. Yeah, that's some great words of wisdom, and I think that's something for all my aspiring creators, or even
Of course.
entrepreneurs too. They need to hear that and know that it takes steps. We sometimes I think sometimes we get so enamored with just amazing artists like yourself, and we get on Instagram or Facebook, we're like, wow. I was like, how come I'm not doing that right now? I was like, well, you don't understand 30 plus years it took to get to to that point.
Yeah, it's a journey, man.
And I think a lot of them just they don't realize that, like, they want it now. Like, I want to be this right now, and
Yeah,
you have to go through the steps, and that's
you do.
how can how can people reach out to you if they're interested in buying prints,
Oh,
um,
sure.
sort of interested in what you're doing with everything in your whole creative ecosystem?
Of
What's the
course.
best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, always, my Instagram is just at Tony Washington Art. If you're interested in buying my prints, it's just TonyWashingtonArt.com. And I actually put a code up there for all of your listeners and all your viewers. If you just use CB20, you get 20% off of anything on my site going forward. The code will be permanent. So and it's anyone who's watching it, a year from now, 2 years from now, and sees it, that code is still active. So it's just CB20. And then, if you have any issues with that, just reach out to me. My contact is on that site. My music can be found on all streaming platforms. It's just under Station Stories. There's a link on my main site, or it's just stationstories.com. Yeah, I mean, those are the main ones I'm active on. I mean, I've got a Twitter. I'm bad at that. I'm not gonna lie. So I don't use it that much, but Instagram and my main site, those are the ones I'm super active on. So got prints dropping. I have a new print dropping on Friday, and another print dropping at the end of the month. And then a whole bunch of stuff is dropping at Comic-Con, so, including my new album. So that'll be out that week of Comic-Con. So Title 5, it's part of the whole crazy sci-fi stuff I do under Station Stories. So it'll be out right around Comic-Con. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much the main ways to contact me. Or if you want to directly email me, it's just Tony at TonyWashingtonArt.com. And definitely do my best to respond within hours if I can, to make sure get back in contact with everyone. So those are the main ones.
All right, hey, that's great. So you heard it, CB20 to get a discount on your website
Yep.
for. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll put that out. So that's great. If you get a chance, like I said, please support everything he's doing at TonyWashingtonArt.com. He's got some awesome stuff. I've checked out his YouTube page. I mean, the process, the tutorials is awesome. And I still, like I said, I still find myself, even me creating, I still find myself going to artists like Tony and others, and still learning and wanting to get better. And that's the only thing you can do, is get better as a creator, and constantly practice, and at the same time too, teach that to others too. I really feel like the more that you teach, you actually become a better creator in that aspect. But on that, if you want to support this episode, support the show, different ways you can do it. Go to www.buymeacoffee.com/the Creative Brew. And for the price of a cup of coffee, you can support this episode and as well as future episodes. And this will drop on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and full video show will be on my YouTube page at Quantel Langford. So other than that, hey, this has been another great episode with Tony, with me, and this is the Creative Brew. Be creative, stay inspired.